Hello, everybody. Hi, this is Archana here from Read, Write, Inspire. So, if I'm clear and you can hear me, please just tell a hi in the comments below. So, after a lot of hiccups today, I'm beginning with the video. Uh, I'm just going to wait for a minute for a few of them to join in. So I don't know, for whatever weird reason, Facebook has decided that I shouldn't go live. So unfortunately, I'm not able to. I was planning to go live on both YouTube and Facebook together, but unfortunately, I've not been able to do it. And since I think Facebook has been the place that we usually have our book club meetings, so it's going to be a little different today. I'm going to go on YouTube and do this, and I've never done a live video on YouTube, so bear with me for any errors. I'm not sure. So, since I've not been on YouTube and not done a live on YouTube, let me just introduce a little bit about this. So, Read Write Inspire has a book club for classics, and every month we pick up a classic, read it, and have a fun discussion together. Uh, in case I'm clear and you can hear me well, please just tell me a hi in the comments below so that I can proceed on. So, yes, so we have a fun discussion, and this month in November, we chose the book Wuthering Heights. And as soon as I saw Wuthering Heights and I saw Wuthering Heights win the poll, in fact, we have a poll on our Facebook group to choose the book. And the first person whom I was reminded of was Percy Wadiwala. And if you are active on the Facebook groups on reading and writing, I'm sure you must have come across his name and maybe even interacted with him. Um, so as soon as as soon as I saw that it's Wuthering Heights, I really wanted to have him join us for the discussion too. Um, so those of you who are online now, can you just please tell me that I am clear so that I can continue with this? Can you please drop in a hi or a hello or something and just let me know that it's all clear? Uh, okay, so let me continue. So just a second. Okay, yeah. So sorry about all these delays and hiccups. Let me just introduce you to um, Percy, and I just wanted to, yeah, once again, sorry about this. Yeah. So as I said, as soon as I came to know that we're going to be reading Wuthering Heights, I was wondering whether I should ask Percy to join us. And after a lot of hesitation, I did, and he graciously agreed. So Percy Wadiwala is a writer and editor based in Mumbai. He got started reading the classics when his parents gifted him an averaged illustrated collection of Around the World in 80 Days as a child, and he has been hooked ever since. His favorite classic, however, is Wuthering Heights, which he first read when he was 11 and confesses to probably having understood next to nothing, and has read several times since. During his MBA, he even chose Wuthering Heights rather than more conventional management oriented books to review for his assignment on corporate behavior. That's very surprising. And in fact, that was one of the reviews which introduced me um, to Percy. And it's I will definitely drop in a link to that review in the description below, and you must check it out. That 6,000 word review made me understand that Percy is very serious about his Wuthering Heights. So apart from that, I know Percy as an editor. He edited my second book, Tales from the History of Mathematics, and he was one of the main reasons why the book went on to win an award. Yes, and apart from that, Percy has been a wonderful friend and an inspiration all through these years. So apart from this, Percy also has a fantastic blog. When he isn't knee deep in the works of long deceased authors, he reviews their books and occasionally writes on other subjects like films at his blog. He's also the author of several short stories and a novella called The Day Money Died. It's available on Kindle, and you must check it out if you haven't. Hi, Percy.
Hi,
Welcome to the
Archana.
discussion.
Hello. I
Yeah.
was listening to all the nice things you were saying, and I was wondering, is she talking about me or has she called somebody else at the last minute?
Okay, so we have Shamal Rao, and he says that the discussion is clear. So I'm so happy to hear that. So finally, we are live after all those hiccups and troubles for the last half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody who've joined us and who's bearing with all this. Um, so we have a very fun, lively, interesting discussion prepared for you today. So I'm going to shift my screen. So Percy, I'm going to go online. But before that, Percy, would you like to tell everyone about how and why you fell in love with Wuthering Heights?
Okay. Yeah. So before I say that, I just want to first of all thank you for what you are doing to grow this reading community. And I was just thinking about how when I was a kid, and I guess when we were kids, we took reading for granted. And I think we didn't foresee that there would be so many distractions, not just for the younger generation, but for us as well. So I really appreciate, and I'm sure
True.
everyone who is participating today would agree that you are doing quite a service to the community by hosting this group and these discussions. Because it's not easy, and she does it just out of her love for books and literature. So really, thank you.
So
uh,
yeah, that's very funny because it's not true. It's completely selfish. I love classics, and I've always wished that I should have had a degree in literature so that I could have analyzed the classics better. And I am too lazy to do it on my own, which is the truth. So, having all these people knowing that I have to go live at the end of this month and speak to everybody makes sure that I actually read, and pay more attention to the classics that I read. So it's completely selfish.
so yeah, fine. So to talk about Wuthering Heights. So the funny thing is, my uncle had two copies. Right, he had two copies of Wuthering Heights, and I remember when I was very young, I would see that book in my grandfather's bookcase, and my father would always say, "This is too difficult for you. This book is really advanced." And I obviously I didn't take him at his word, because what kid ever takes their parents at their word. But I read through the first few pages, and I was pretty sure that he was not kidding, because if you remember, there is early on a short monologue by Heathcliff's male servant, Joseph,
Okay.
and that is in that strong Yorkshire accent. So it goes
Yes.
completely over your head.
Yeah.
So I didn't really revisit it until back in the day on Doordarshan. They would show once a week this old BBC adaptation of Wuthering
Oh,
Heights, and
wow.
I saw a few episodes and I was hooked. And like I said, it was weekly, and I think between the fourth and fifth episode, I came to my grandfather's place, I found that book, and I read the whole thing before the next episode. So uh, and I was completely engrossed, because it is very powerful narrative. I mean, trust me, at that time, I was not thinking about who is Emily Bronte, the fact that a woman wrote a book like this, the fact that a
Hmm.
book like this got written in that era, right? It was
Correct.
that whole, oh my God, what's going to happen next? So yeah,
Exactly.
basically, to me, it was as much a page turner as I think any Pulp Fiction or any other book would be. I just really wanted to know what was going to happen to these insane people, and
Right.
so yeah, I totally fell in love with it, and I think I must have read it at least 2 or 3 times with in the next couple of years, and several times again after that. So, and of course, the famous college assignment. So, don't even ask. I, I think my nobody else submitted anything longer than 1,000 words. I sometimes think that
Yeah,
professor saw the
6,000 words.
length. Yeah, I think he saw the length and said, "Okay, I'm not reading this, so I'll just give him an A and get out of here."
True, and it's so surprising that for an MBA degree, you wrote a review of Wuthering Heights and they accepted it. I thought they would be like, "What is this?
No,
It's
no,
we are not going to accept this.
yeah.
We wanna."
If you,
So
yeah.
that's good. So
So
that way, you
actually,
should appreciate your college.
no, but to be fair, he gave it back with comments, so I assume he did read it. So
Oh, great, fantastic. For me, actually, it's been like I'm not sure how many of those who are with us today are from CBSE or whether they follow the same textbook as me. But we had an excerpt in our book, which is the scene of the father coming home and not bringing the gifts for the children. Instead, he brings this child, Headcliff, and the initial reaction of Catherine and they are so angry, at their father for not getting their gifts, and finally in the night the child actually crawls towards the father's bedroom. Yeah. So the excerpt
mm,
stopped with that, and I don't know why I was completely hooked. That a father could just, we've heard of parents bringing home dogs or cats which were found in the wild, but bringing home a child from the street and wanting to him to just be induced into the family was shocking for me. And somehow I was completely hooked to that excerpt and I wanted to read more. And the only version which was available at home was this unabridged version of Wuthering Heights, which was my mother's English literature textbook from college. And so I picked it up and just went for it. And I'm very sure I wouldn't have understood even 50% or even maybe 70% of what I read, but I loved it. And I don't know why I loved
yeah.
it also. I'm very sure I must have been completely confused with what was happening because there are too many characters and too many different narrations actually. But I don't know. I
I think
loved it.
to yeah, I think
That's
to
how
that
it
extent, the
was.
fact that I had seen a few episodes of that serial helped me a lot. It's easier to
Okay.
track when you can picture the character a little bit. So
Hmm. In
to
fact,
that extent, I
only
think I had a
I had no idea that it was made for the screen. So I just checked recently. I was just when we were
mm.
creating like making the discussion and everything. That's when I checked out on YouTube, and the entire movie is available for free on YouTube.
Oh, that one. That's the old Laurence Olivier one, right?
Yeah, the old
Yeah,
one, and I
that
think
that
there's
actually
a.
covers hardly half the story.
Oh, really? Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
that. Okay,
And of course,
okay.
it's actually, you could say, it's a very watered down version because
Oh.
there was a censorship code. So
Oh, okay, fine.
there
So
was
there's a lot of
the
highs to for you and for me. Let's just tell them all a hi and then we'll start with the discussion.
oh,
So
sure.
we have Ramya Vivek here. So hi Ramya.
Hi,
So
Ramya.
yeah, great that you've joined in. And we have Tanim. Thank you so much, Tanim, for coming in.
Hi,
And
Taneem.
yes, so yeah, so um, this is my mother, a literature student, and someone who's revisiting the classics along with us now in the book club. So, hi, mom. And we have Deepthi here. So, yeah, yes, Deepthi, I'll put a link to that review and you must check it out. So let's go on to the discussion. And so sorry, everybody, for all these delays. I'm sharing screen and let's start. Okay. So here we are. So today again, we are following the same route or what we usually do. So we speak a little bit about the history of the time period when it was written and how that has affected the story. A little bit about the author, and the narrative style plays a very important role in Wuthering Heights. So a little on that, and about Gothic literature and the elements which have been uh, present in Wuthering Heights, some discussions and some quotes. So a little bit of the history of Wuthering Heights. This was during the period of industrialization in England, and what is one of the important parts of the story is Heathcliff running away and coming back rich. Now, Heathcliff running away and coming back rich would have been an impossibility in Yorkshire before. However, this was the time when industrialization came in, and there was a dissolution of the classes. So no longer were these, landlords and these bigger families the only ones with wealth. And that is played an important role in this story, because otherwise it wouldn't have struck true that Heathcliff became rich actually. And also there was a huge rift growing between haves and have-nots, and just like how Hindley started losing his wealth and finally having to give up his house itself to Heathcliff. So this was happening in society then, and there was this huge rift going on, and there was a lot of contempt for people like Heathcliff who are considered as the new rich, you know. And one more thing which I read about was that this entire, story is a little bit about, a symbolic representation of the American Revolution, So it's mentioned that Heathcliff is dark. So there is this feeling that he might have had a parent who could have been African American, which is, I'm not sure how far that's true, but there is a point of view which says that. In fact, I think 2016, there was a movie, right, Percy?
Yeah, yeah.
2016 or 17, yeah. So in which Heathcliff is played by an African American person.
That said, I think the more common consensus is that he was probably a gypsy or a Romani, as they say,
Yeah,
Roma
yeah.
community of Europe, which are originally supposed to be from India, in fact. So,
From
if you remember,
India?
yeah, the Roma are from India.
Oh, okay.
They migrated out
Oh,
of North India many hundreds of years ago. In fact, there is at
okay.
one point a dialogue where, if you remember, Nellie says to Heathcliff that maybe your father was a prince from India. It's there.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's there
I
in the book. You
remember.
remember?
Correct, correct, correct. In fact,
So
even when the child is seen also, so she says,
yeah,
right, you brought that gypsy child.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
yeah, so that is there. But there was this
Nowadays,
very
the word
interesting,
gypsy is taken as a slur, but at the time it was a pretty common usage. So
correct.
there's that.
But I read this very interesting article that this whole thing could be a symbolism of the American Revolution, and Heathcliff could actually be from America, and he has now prevailed and brought down two old powerful families. So this
I
is
think,
what happened,
yeah, I think that's a very interesting point of view. I think at the fact that at the end the families end up, joining up and consolidating and probably joining their
Yeah.
land as well, kind of takes that away. I think a bit, but it's
Yeah,
definitely
true.
an
That is
interesting
true.
point to think about.
Yeah. So, apart from this, is there anything else you wanted to add with this, Percy, about Wuthering Heights? the history of this period, because I don't think there's too much of a significance of history in Wuthering Heights exactly.
No, no. I think the specific circumstances of the author, I think, which you'll be covering next, that is more important in this context.
Yeah,
Uh,
because
Apart
usually
from,
in all the
yeah.
books we have done till now, I think history
Mm.
played a vital role. In fact, maybe about 10-15 minutes of our discussion used to be on the history of that particular classic. And,
I think we
this
can
has been
gloss
very
over that
different.
a bit here, yeah, because
Yeah,
Wuthering Heights and in general the works of the Bronte sisters did not really, apart from to some extent Jane Eyre and Villette, did not really deal with those with the hot button political issues of the time, right? It's
exactly.
in fact the
Right.
entirety of Wuthering Heights is set in an area of probably 10 square miles. So
Correct. Correct.
yeah,
Right.
so I don't think we need to
Okay.
really get too far into that. We can move on.
Yeah. So let's move on then.
Yeah.
So a little bit about Emily Bronte. So this is her only book. She was a typical the 19th century woman, private, domestic, hidden from history, and writing under a pen name called Alice Bell. And also she died at the age of 30. So and she was quite sick, I think, for most of her life. Um, so one more recent, of course, all the Bronte sisters wrote under the pen name, various pen names, all of which ended with Bell. But one of the reasons specifically they felt that Wuthering Heights should not be in a women's name was because of the passion in it, the violence in it, and so they felt that men will not be able to digest it if they come to know that the author is a woman. So and yeah, so apart from this, a little bit about her. She was a very shy. She was very close to her siblings. I think, yeah, she's an animal lover. She befriended stray dogs, ardent reader, loved the moors, and which is why the moors is a major part of Wuthering Heights. And one more thing which I'd forgotten to cover here was she was extremely close to her brother. Her brother, I think he was an artist, but artist and poet, is it, Percy? Any
Yeah,
idea?
mainly an artist. Mainly an artist.
Mainly an artist, and he did not see much success, and he fell a prey to alcoholism and he passed away. And
Yes.
it kind of affected Emily a lot, and in fact it said that she placed a lot of Heathcliff's qualities on her brother. So she tried to, uh, maybe her brother wasn't exactly as Heathcliff was, but she tried to create some of those uh, feelings, like how Heathcliff also is a prey to alcoholism, and he's in his sorrow over Catherine, just like how her brother was in a sorrow about his unaccomplished dreams. So those ways
Interestingly,
it's
Archana, if
said.
I can actually, the theme of their brother, right, Branwell Bronte, his name was, is recurs in not only Emily's work but also in Anne Bronte's work. If you look at the Tenant of Wildfell Hall, that is
Hmm.
also strongly concerned with the problems and the evils of unrestrained alcoholism. And in
Okay.
fact, I think Wildfell Hall is really a sort of is you could say it's Anne Bronte lashing out against the problems that her brother had. So
Okay.
Branwell Bronte
Hmm.
really informed his sister's work, you could say.
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
it's so it's not
That's very
anyway. Sure.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Yeah, so the two, I think, most famous works have been Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Annie Bronte.
yeah.
And anything else you wanted to add to this, Percy, about Emily?
Sure. So a few things. Right. So, as you know, Emily Bronte, as you rightly point out, was a very private person. And in fact, they were not from a rich family, right? They were from a very middle class kind of family. Their father was a village curate or something like that, the equivalent of a
Okay.
priest.
Yeah.
And so the three sisters and the brother, they grew up together. Their mother died when they were fairly young. So They were raised by their father and an aunt, and they were all very well read, and they even trained to go out and be governesses, right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
they needed to earn money.
Mm-hmm.
And Emily Bronte did not really take to being a teacher. She tried to teach in a school. She tried to be a governess. It didn't really work out for her. I think
Mm-hmm.
partly because she was this very private person,
Yeah.
and maybe she enjoyed that life in her father's house, with her books
Correct.
and with her animals and on the moors. So she in
I
fact quit
heard,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
she
remember
quit that
reading
job and
about
came back.
this. She didn't like the
Yeah.
discipline of it, in fact. That's what I
Yeah.
read, remember reading. She wanted to be more free to write and pursue her own thing instead of being regulated to that discipline of teaching and waking up at a particular time and,
And I
following a
think,
proper schedule.
yeah, and I think when you're talking about being a teacher at that time, the kind of kids who would be under their care would typically be the children of rich people
Okay.
who would be possibly spoiled brats because
Yeah.
uh, you're talking about 19th century England, so
Correct. Correct. True.
the
Yeah.
the very typical aristocratic kids may not have been very pleasant to teach either. So there is that, because it's a recurring theme in Charlotte Bronte's books about how most of the
Mm-hmm.
kids how most of the kids tend to be very painful to deal with. uh, in that's
Correct.
there in The Professor and in Villette, where she talks about being a school teacher and being a governess. So we don't know what kind of kids the Brontes had to teach, but I think
Yeah.
Emily
Could
Bronte
be.
not have
No,
been,
not very rewarding.
yeah, may not have been cut out for that. So anyway, the fact is, we know that she came back to her father's house in Yorkshire, and she nursed her brother while he was sick, and side by side,
Mm-hmm.
she wrote this book. And what is
Okay.
remarkable really is that a person who we understand to be so private and lacking what you might call a lot of real world experience, right? Emily Bronte is not
Mm-hmm.
someone who you would say had a lot of real world experience.
No, she
uh,
didn't. She didn't have.
she did.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, obviously, when you compare it to the male authors of the time who had the freedom to travel and the freedom to work,
Correct. Hmm.
uh,
Right.
but if you also talk about an earlier author like Jane Austen
Mm-hmm.
actually had a fair bit of opportunity to interact with the world, because while she was not rich, her father was definitely an upper class gentleman,
Mm.
and
True.
she lived in the south of England. She definitely got to interact more with people. When you talk about George
Definitely.
Eliot, he lived around 30-40 years after the Brontes, and
Yeah, yeah.
she lived a
Yeah,
pretty
she
liberal life.
was. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. She had a
she
pretty
was.
rich
Yeah,
experience. Yeah.
she was bold. So
Yeah.
you've got this lady, and you got these three sisters who managed to write these genre defining books, and
Right.
although Wuthering Heights deals with mainly just two families, it does so with a richness of language and reference and dialogue and the sudden power of words that is remarkable. I mean, it would be remarkable in anyone. And the fact
Mm.
that it came from this supposedly, and again, when you talk about Emily Bronte, the we don't have a lot of sources for what she was really like,
True.
right? We have to remember that this is someone who died at 30. Our main source is actually only Charlotte Bronte.
True. Very true. Yeah.
So supposedly this very private, shy
Mm.
individual managed to
Mm-hmm.
write this. It's remarkable. I think
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's
Definitely.
remarkable, and it's something else. So, and yeah, of
True. Very
course,
true.
writing under a man's name is, I
Mm.
guess, I don't know if you know about this, but one publisher actually had rejected a submission by Charlotte Bronte saying that women have no business trying to write.
Hmm.
So that, yeah, so you can sort of see why the sisters would try to publish under a male name. I
Correct.
mean,
Yeah.
talk about the patriarchy, right?
Yeah. No, it was such a taboo then, like I was just watching this on this series on Apple TV on Emily Dickinson. And
Mm-hmm.
so the her father actually makes her promise that, you can write, you can do what you like, but you should not get try to get published.
Oh,
So yeah, that would because that would bring such a big shame to the family name if you try and get published.
it's interesting that,
So
I think the fact that Jane Austen managed to achieve the success she did had a lot to do with the fact that her work had
mm,
become very popular with the Prince Regent, the
mm,
Prince of Wales. So
okay.
she kind of had a powerful patron, but in general, women
Oh,
in that time definitely had a lot of difficulty writing. It's sad.
yes, yes,
It's sad to think
definitely.
about how many
Yeah.
great writers we will never know, right?
Yes. No, definitely. It's going to be like Emily Dickinson itself that, it's just shocking to see that she keeps writing every day and she keeps putting it into a box, all these scraps of paper in which she's written her poems. And after her death, the box is opened and there are more than 2,000 poems over there. And after that, she gets published. So all through her life, not a single poem of hers was actually published. And now it's
Still,
like amazing. It's difficult to open any poetry collection of those years without any one
that's
of
true.
at least one of her poems.
That's
So we
true.
have a few comments here, Percy.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just okay. So I think I'll have to log. You can see the comments. Yeah. So Ravi
Yeah,
says, "I'm here."
I see. Yeah, the birthday boy
Okay.
is
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Ravi. Glad to have you here. And yeah, so Shyamal Rao says that he really enjoyed reading your review and he
Oh,
read it before joining the discussion.
thank you for reading it, sir. Thank you very much. I'm glad you liked
So,
it.
so let's continue with the discussion then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the next thing was about the narrative style. I think entire books can be probably written about this because it was so revolutionary at that period to have such a difficult and a very complicated narrative style because you have here
Yes.
two narrators. One is Lockwood, the tenant, and you have
Yeah.
Nellie Dean,
Narration within a
the
narration.
yeah. So Lockwood speaks to Nellie Dean, and Nellie Dean speaks to Lockwood, and oh God. But
And
then, yeah.
there are the other characters who tell their stories to Nelly, who tells them to Lockwood. So,
So, so
but
this is, there
but
was this,
one
yeah.
possible source for this. Uh,
Hmm.
I think I've read somewhere that the Bronte sisters had read and liked the Arabian Nights,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay, that's
I
very
mean they
interesting.
were, yeah, so they were proficient in like French, right? I think at the time, I don't know if there was an English translation of the Arabian Nights, but they were very proficient in French. But my
Okay.
point is, the Arabian Nights employs this unreliable narrator and this story within a story device a
Yeah.
lot. So I
Yeah.
think that is where she might have sort of, been inspired by, and she's done it so
Hmm.
well that it's really,
True.
yeah,
Um, Actually, there is two points of view when it comes to Wuthering Heights, even in like right from the earlier periods, right from when the book was published. So one which says that it was powerful, it's dark, intense, and it's got a fierce poetry in it. That was one kind of view. And the
yeah.
other one is that it's brutal, rude, repellent, and they say that it's a terrible experience reading it. And I think that terrible experience that most people felt could have been something to do with the narrative style. Because I think maybe if not everyone could be able to, would be able to very easily follow it. What do you think, Percy?
I I kind of agree. I think that if that it is a book that sort of demands you to invest in it.
Mm.
To invest in it. Just hold on one second.
So your
Yeah.
daughter has decided to join us.
Yeah, she managed to get her earrings stuck in something. Anyway,
Okay.
so where was I? So I said yes. So I think yeah, it is a kind of book that demands an investment of your mind space into it. I think
Right.
it's not a book that at least at the first reading, it's not a book that you will read a chapter and put it aside. I think you really need to be paying attention to what's happening on the page, and it does
Correct.
need you to follow what's happening, which is kind of true of a lot of classics. But
Mm-hmm.
Wuthering Heights definitely, partly because of this sort of structure where it starts off as something else, then there is a
Mm.
flashback, then there is a break in the middle, then if you remember,
Mm.
Lockwood comes back to
Correct. Mm.
Heights.
Mm.
It's actually told in a very
Mm.
uh, I wouldn't say it's not linear, but it's told in a kind of uh,
Mm.
yeah, it's told in a kind of a sort of sinuous way. It doesn't really say straightforwardly, "Th- this happened, then this happened, then this happened."
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
kind of employing this unreliable narrator as a device to say that ultimately whatever you the reader are
Mm.
seeing is coming to you through two lenses,
Correct.
Nelly and
Yeah.
Lockwood.
Right. Lockwood, the outsider, and Ellie, who's the,
Yeah, Lockwood is the
absolute
outsider,
insider. Yeah.
and Lockwood is totally the only reason he is interested is that he has a crush on the younger Catherine, right?
Correct. Right.
He
Yes.
meets her at he it starts with him running into her, and
Mm.
he asks Nelly what's going on there, and she starts that whole narrative.
Yeah.
And but I think so what you said, right, that it is the fact that people call it brutal, etc., that is not untrue. It is, when you see it in the
Hmm.
context of the time it was written, it is
Hmm.
definitely very unusual to have this kind of language openly spoken, right?
Hmm.
Or openly published, you could say. You don't see a
Correct.
lot of that. So I think it's not. And while now we may think that why were they so sensitive about this, right? It seems as if yeah, it's a very oversensitive position to take, to say that
Hmm.
Wuthering Heights is very brutal or very
Hmm.
violent, because but it was 150 years ago, and the conventions
Yeah.
of the time were different. In fact, I would say that even today, the power of the writing is such that it can it can transplant you there,
It
right?
does.
It
It does.
transplants you there, and that's when you see this character Heathcliff as a I believe it is Nelly or someone who uses the no, I think it is Isabella who uses the word diabolical, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
think of diabolical as a adjective, but
Hmm.
understand it comes from saying literally like the devil, right?
Okay. Okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that kind of reference, I mean, she's calling this guy he's the devil incarnate.
Yes.
It's very strong imagery, and very obviously
Yeah.
there is a lot of depiction of physical abuse as well. There is a lot of mental abuse
Yeah.
happening if you think about
Correct.
it,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
no one's good really.
Hmm. And I think,
There's
like in many ways, she needn't have had Lockwood, if you think about it, to tell the story.
yeah,
Lockwood was maybe
yeah,
not needed. But it's only because, we see through Lockwood's eyes on how, different and coarse Heathcliff is, that we are able
yeah,
to get that entire impression. I think
exactly,
he
exactly.
plays such an important role as a narrator, and so does Nellie, because obviously it's only Nellie who would really know what happened and who did what.
No, you put it really well when you said that
So
Lockwood operates as the outsider. he is the framing device.
Correct.
He makes you feel
Yeah.
that the remoteness of that area, right? The remoteness of Wuthering Heights.
Correct.
From that very first scene
Yes.
when he says that he will go
Yes.
to meet his landlord, and so he becomes this
Hmm.
framing device of this place and
Hmm.
these people as a very, I wouldn't say savage, but as a very removed from the refined Victorian life that
Correct. Yeah.
other authors tend to write. And then you
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
Nellie as someone who has grown up with these people and
Exactly.
who talks
Hmm.
as if for whom even those who are dead, for her, Edgar and Catherine are also real people. So she's
Correct.
so because she is telling it in that context, they also become real to us. So I think it's if you let yourself immerse into it, it becomes a very interesting narrative device to first give you distance and then throw you in.
In exactly. So it's a very well thought out thing. It wasn't. I'm very sure she gave a lot of thought to whom she wants. Emily, whom
Yeah,
Emily wants to tell the story, and
true.
so I was just reading about various other interpretations. Of course, I just went into this online, whole of
Research
the
rabbit
well,
hole.
yeah. So read I don't know how many articles and how many different kind of interpretations and stuff. So it's so I've just realized that there are so many things that this particular kind of narration and her kind of writing, it just throws open the door. You can have multiple meanings, multiple interpretations, and multiple responses for the. So one particular thing which I just came across and which I wanted to share was who is actually Headcliff, you know. And so this was a very interesting thing. I don't know, maybe you already read about this, Percy, but I just wanted to, just throw it open. One particular interpretation with a few, I would say, justifications for that, which felt very true to me.
Mhm.
Heathcliff could actually be the son of Earnshaw. Okay, so
Yeah, I read that possibility
yeah,
as well. That Heathcliff was
yeah,
Earnshaw's illegitimate son from the city, right?
illegitimate son. Yeah, and
And
when
that
you
would kind
see
of
the
explain, yeah, that would
yeah,
kind of explain Hindley's anger towards him, right?
exactly, because see, there's so much. Even when he realizes there's something between, that Hindley doesn't like him, he sends away his own
Mm.
son. Who would do that? He
Mm.
could have actually sent away Heathcliff to study somewhere else, but he doesn't
Yeah.
do that. He sends away Hindley. Even there are so many other things. Like for instance, when Nellie starts saying, she says that one fine summer morning, it was the beginning of harvest.
Mm.
So at the beginning of harvest, no farmer would actually leave his land and go away on a sudden trip. And so there was this very interesting discussion. He says that he walked 60 miles each way. Okay. And
Yeah.
there was no reason for him to do that. He had a horse. It's very clear. We know that he had a horse. So,
Mm.
the thing is that the interpretation which they've taken is that he didn't use his horse because he didn't want to go on the road and attract attention. He wanted to use other ways of travel so that they don't come to know about it. And also the huge coat that he wears and goes, that's enough to hide a child completely inside. And even better than that is what Mrs. Earnshaw says when he enters the house and shows this child. So this is the sentence which she says, asking how he could fashion to bring that gypsy brat into the house. She doesn't say this gypsy brat, she says that gypsy brat into the house. So,
Mm.
so I'm
Yeah.
just,
So she
I'm
already
just
knew he
reading
had a.
between the lines.
So yeah, I think some of these. I mean, obviously, it's not a very far-fetched explanation, though.
Correct.
I think that whole walking thing is a bit of reaching. It's perfectly possible to have your horse break down, just like cars break down. So that's
Okay.
as well as the long coat. Because I mean, if he's going to bring the kid home, he's not
Yeah.
really hiding it from anyone. If you're hiding it, you will
Mm.
not have the kid home.
Mm.
But I think it is a pretty fair call to say that it is perfectly possible that he had found out
Mm.
that his other woman had passed away, so
Or
he
yeah, something like
yeah
that, and he brought the child home.
yeah
So it's a
so that's
very
why he
like I just say it's a very interesting way of thinking of it. We don't know,
yeah
there's that way. I think I saw various different interpretations and
yeah
of these characters and the relationships between
yeah
them. So quite interesting actually. So let's anyway, there are some more comments which have come in. So
hmm
I'll just post it. Yeah. Mm, okay. Yeah, so I thought Nellie was the perfect narrator. She had the confidence of almost all the characters and yet could tell the story like an outsider. True, I think, she was
that's right.
very confident, and I think she's grown up in that household right from childhood. So she wasn't really scared of anyone, whether it was Headcliff or anyone. She was
Interesting.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and one more thing,
Mm,
Tulika, you hit the nail on the head, because what you have with Nelly, so sometimes when you have a narrator like this, right? When you have a nested loop kind of a narrative style, that narrator is almost like a movie camera, by which I mean he doesn't have his own role. He
mm,
is just relating what happens. But
correct.
Nelly is not quite like that. Nelly is a member of that household who, when the time comes, takes actions. She
Mm,
doesn't stand outside the narrative. It is Lockwood who stands outside the narrative, and it is Nelly
correct.
who goes inside it. She is very much a active. I mean, she's not.
Mm,
To contrast it, when you talk about a first person narrative like David Copperfield or Great Expectations, uh, the narrator, right? The narrator is the leading character. Everything happens to the narrator. Whereas in Wuthering Heights, Nellie is, I mean, she must have, I mean, the writer would have had this difficult balancing act between, obviously Nelly is not the protagonist, but at the same time she's not purely a
mm,
camera. So I think it's a very
mm.
nice, delicate, perfect, as you said, a perfect narrator. She had the confidence, and yet she could tell the story
Mm.
like an outsider. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, Shamal Rao says in Italo Calvino's words, a classic is a book that has never finished saying what it has to say. This book definitely fulfills the definition of a classic. Yes,
Very right.
very, very, very true. Yeah. Uh, this is my first read of the book, and I feel that I might have missed the beauty that still lies inside. I shall read it again. I think this is one book in which every time you read, you find something new. I don't know. Every time I felt I realized something new about the book, even in this reading. Like, for
Yes, yes.
instance, just what we spoke about Heathcliff, all these years, I think probably I don't know how many multiple times that I read it, but it never struck me. When I see this now, all that I can see in every scene between Earnshaw and Heathcliff, I feel like yeah, he has to be the son. So I guess that's how it's going to be. Um, yeah, and I agree it isn't an easy read, yet it's gripping and pretty fast paced. Yes, it's very fast paced actually. True.
It is. It is.
Uh, yeah, I like Nellie's narration. It adds to beauty and charm of the book, keeps you engrossed completely. True. She's very detailed, she brings about each of their expressions, the way their nuances to show
No,
the
but
emotion.
yeah,
So yeah.
and when you think about it, Emily Bronte, I think, has this mention of the fact that
Mm.
Nelly used to sit to study with the other Earnshaw kids.
Yes,
So
yes,
she has explained why this housekeeper is also able to narrate at this level, right?
correct. Right, right.
Because it's often like normally it would not be believable for
Mm.
someone from that class, but then here they're showing that even Joseph is literate. He's able to read the Bible.
Correct.
So they are showing that although these are the servant class, they are actually educated enough. And then you have,
True.
and I think that's what makes the fact that Heathcliff doesn't educate Hareton at all, right?
Hmm.
Heathcliff actually, obviously, Hareton's father also neglects him, and then
Correct.
Heathcliff encourages that neglect is so striking because you
Hmm.
have it like they go from a family where even the servants are taught to read and write to this.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. The book takes us to the moods. We have to read it again and again to appreciate it. Right. I read it as a young teen, and the imagery was so intense. I had nightmares. That image of Headcliff hanging out of the window with the rain lashing across his face, that was unforgettable. True. For me, the imagery which completely stuck in my head and I could just not remove was him digging up the grave. You know, it actually gave me nightmares. And oh my God, it was really something. It was really something to even imagine someone do that. So yeah. This is interesting. Headcliff being Ansha's son fits in pretty well. Yes, Tulika, it does, doesn't it? Thank goodness Nelly was well read enough to not speak like Joseph. Thank God for that. Yeah,
Yes.
otherwise I think Wuthering Heights would not have probably been as popular as what it was now, what it is now. Yeah. The prose is reflective of the deep anguish of unrequited love. True. The lines of Heathcliff asking Catherine's friend to haunt him comes to mind. Do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. Yes. Um, I think we are coming now. Next, we will be talking about a little bit about the love and the various kinds of love shown in the story. So we are coming to you, Ramya, soon. So let's go to the next slide. And yeah, so this is often Wuthering Heights is assumed to be a romantic novel, which it isn't. It's completely, I feel, a dark story of vengeance, and
Yeah.
it's a gothic
It,
literature.
it
So
yeah it used to be a very triggering thing for me when I used to see people talk about
I
Wuthering
I
Heights as a romance, and I would be
remember.
like, "What the hell is wrong with people nowadays?" I'm like, "Okay, fine,
I know.
whatever."
So earlier, whenever in any reading group there's a discussion about Wuthering Heights is a romantic novel, I used to see in the comments, definitely Percy must have commented here or something. So yeah, so that's true, but I think in a certain way, this romance between this all-consuming passion between Heathcliff and Catherine is a major part of the novel, but
Oh, definitely, definitely.
definitely, it's definitely not a romantic novel, and it's got all the gothic elements. Like usually, these are considered to be gothic elements, like ghost, having an orphan, menacing dogs, and storm, and of course, digging up the grave. So, so it's and again, I'm not sure. There are few other gothic literature also, like even Twilight. I think you're not very clear on whether you call that person as a protagonist or an antagonist, right?
Twilight is. I
I'm
mean, the
not sure.
author has said, yeah. No, I mean, the author has said she was inspired by Wuthering Heights itself. So.
Oh, really? Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah, 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 totally. This,
Oh,
this, it's
that's
her
fantastic.
homage.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh.
so I think Wuthering Heights is difficult to slot into a genre at the best of times, right? It's
Mm,
kind of a romance. I wouldn't say it is it's not completely not a romance because it has those elements. It's definitely
mm,
got elements of horror. It's got that whole
mm,
family saga drama thing going, and I think this is
mm,
where you kind of really have to think about the limitations of the genre labels that we use, right?
mm,
Uh, because they really don't capture, they don't necessarily capture
mm,
some books, or you could say many books. So yeah, it's kind of a dark story of vengeance, but it is also driven by a very very intense, passionate love between these two characters. It's destructive love, right?
mm,
It's completely
mm,
destructive love. It physically destroys Catherine Earnshaw / Linton, and
Mm.
it completely makes a monster out of Heathcliff. The
Yeah.
fact that he doesn't, it's not requited. And then, of course, you have Edgar Linton, who is in this position where he is neither able to uh, leave, I mean, love his wife, nor he's caught in the middle. He's like
Yeah.
he's basically collateral damage. In fact, everyone else is collateral damage to
Yeah, yeah.
these two
That's
characters.
the lives of all of everyone around them have been, I think, destroyed with their thing, Yeah. So let me go on to the next part of it. So yeah, a little bit more on Heathcliff and antagonists that you root for. So yeah, okay, he's not the usual romantic hero, a traumatized child, neglected and bullied, and he's shown as a social outcast. So even at the Grunch, Catherine is accepted, but Heathcliff is not. And
Mm.
I think a lot of this is to do with the Christian beliefs of, uh, everywhere if you see, Heathcliff is shown as if he's the, everything that's anti-Christian, I would say, like he's seen
Yeah.
as a beast. And there's so much of emphasis on black, as if black means a beast or someone who is not refined, so a black villain, fiend, ungrateful brute, and all these, a lot of terminology which is associated with hell is used to describe him all through the novel, you know
Yes.
uh, so so all these have been various aspects, I think, in the novel. One is that heaven, hell, sin, purgatory, redemption, death, afterlife, and all these things. So I was just trying to
Yeah.
see on what was Emily's actually belief on this.
Hmm.
And she belonged to this specific, group. Of course, she was a Christian and everything, but there was this group of people who believed that all that happens, all that happens to you on earth, all your suffering is over with earth. So hell exists only on earth. So once you're dead, you would definitely reach heaven. So the soul does not suffer any torment after death. So this is what is her belief, which is why you have that last sentence which says, one can safely guess that the
I,
sleepers in
yeah.
the quiet earth do not have unquiet slumbers.
Yeah.
So I just felt that, I just wanted to point out how an author's, religious beliefs in many ways, I think, are, shown in the stories that they write.
I think that is always the case. If when someone has
Yeah,
strong beliefs, then they will filter down. And
correct, correct.
you're right. Actually, a lot of what you see about Heathcliff and a lot of how it is he is described has to do with the
Mm.
conventional depictions of satanical
Mm-hmm.
elements. And
Yeah.
I just wonder when
I,
you think about the early part of the book, right, and the
mm-hmm.
progression. Uh,
Mm.
is the author trying to somewhere say that Heathcliff became the way he was because he was treated as if he was already that?
Correct.
Hindley was already treating him as if he was, this
Yeah.
other person. And
Hmm.
the breaking point, obviously, is when he listens to that half of Catherine's conversation where she says, I can never be with him. He is too far below me.
Yeah.
And he
Right.
misses the part where she says that legendary, it doesn't matter, the fact is he is
Hmm.
me and I am him. And
Correct.
I think that is that breaking point. You have to come back to that whole point of haves and have nots. Is that where he thinks whatever I do, I'm always going to be this other, this devilish, this
Yeah.
degraded person, and I
Hmm.
can never. So
Hmm.
it's a lot of that element as well. I think they uh,
Yeah. So
we
even when
invent,
he's
it is humanity
yeah.
that invented the devil. It is, it is humanity that invented the devil. It is the people there
Yeah.
who made Heathcliff. So that's one
Hmm.
way to look at it.
Right. So even actually, even in the introduction, of Earnshaw, when he says he brings the child home, he brings Heathcliff home.
Hmm.
He says, "Take it as a gift of God, though it says dark, almost as if it came from the devil."
Yeah. Yes.
You know, so this is the first introduction we have, in fact, to him. So yeah. So I think it's a good time to tell you guys also that I made a I it was nothing planned or anything. I just put up a post on Facebook which had a very, very roundabout religious connotation, and it was not a religious connotation also. It was just a religious institution which wronged someone, and I don't know what happened. Oh God! So it wasn't planned or anything, and that's where Facebook banned me from going and doing any live videos. So, so that's why we are here on YouTube today. Let's see whether I get a chance to go back over there, or we will be continuing again, I guess, with YouTube. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Let's see. Which actually, the post has nothing to do with religion. It is not against any religion or anything. There's one small word which comes over there in that Facebook post, and for which it has been reported, and for which I have been, I think, banned from doing any live videos on Facebook, which is something at least I should have been informed. I wasn't. So I just suddenly realized when I tried to go live, Facebook was blocking me. Okay, anyway, so we go on with this. Okay. So the second topic of discussion was various kinds of love. So why do women readers find Heathcliff attractive?
I think you
Of
should take
course.
this one. No?
Yeah, so I do find Heathcliff extremely attractive, and this idea of being desired, beyond all reason, of someone actually maybe digging up my grave and taking me out is like, oh, swoon worthy thoughts. But yeah, so coming back to it, of course, Catherine and Heathcliff had this all consuming passion. While Catherine loved Edgar, but not in the same way that she loved Heathcliff, which she also says that I do love him. So she has this socially acceptable but a very dull relationship with Edgar. And this same relationship is exaggerated and shown when it comes to Kathy and Linton, and where they show Linton as this,
Yeah.
um, yeah, as this powerless and totally, what do you call it? This person who has,
Just
um,
totally
yeah,
selfish, totally
yeah,
self-obsessed,
correct.
uh, physically weak, very,
Hmm.
you know,
And again, so when it comes to Kathy and Harriton, I think finally the author tries to show us a relationship which is balanced and without being dull, and there's equal power between them. So, yeah, so Kathy and Harriton, I think, are shown as the ideal way in which a relationship must be. At least I think so. But of course, women across centuries have, I think, found and are going to find Heathcliff extremely attractive because, of course, as I just said, socially acceptable relations are relationships where we are peaceful, calm, and happy seem sometimes dull. So yeah, so women like some little bit of adventure, I guess. But if
I
there's
think you
any
could.
other reason, yeah,
I think
maybe
you could
people
talk
can
about it
comment.
as Emily Bronte saying that you know
Mm.
uh, it is society not accepting or not being able to process that a woman
Hmm.
could love two men at the same time.
Yeah,
Uh,
true, true,
I
true.
mean, it is theoretically possible if she was French that
Yeah,
she could have a husband and a lover, right? But she
correct.
wasn't.
Yeah. In fact, I think in many places, Catherine is actually surprised on why Edgar should get upset or why Heathcliff should get upset.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
what? What is the problem if I love them both? Which is again was very surprising to me. She doesn't find it wrong or she doesn't feel anything about it. She's like, why are they upset about it? So what if
She's
there is
not
another person?
thinking of it in that manner at all. Of course,
Yeah.
I think for those who see the film before reading the book, there is always that element of the fact that it is portrayed by Laurence Olivier, in
Okay.
who this sort of dark, brooding sex symbol in his young days,
Oh,
and it's very
okay.
easy to then conflate the actor with the character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe also happens to a lot of people who watch Gone with the Wind and fall in love with Clark Gable
Mm.
and conflate that with Red
Okay.
Butler, right? So
Okay.
because I've in fact seen this documentary.
Mm.
It was being hosted by I cannot remember the name right now, but it's a quite a well-known British actress,
Mm-hmm.
not Helen Mirren, but someone from that generation, right? And
Okay.
she was talking about how she saw the film first. And could you just hold on for 1 minute, please? Hello.
Okay.
गाडीचा दरवाजा उघडा आहे.
Okay, let's see some comments meanwhile. Okay.
बरोबर.
Oh, there's a lot of comments. It is difficult to take sides, whether it is a book of love or vengeance or pathos. Throughout the reading, I was oscillating. Yes, that's true.
That's
The
true.
main
Yeah.
character, Headcliff, who's away, is at once savage and ruthless on one hand and intelligent and loving on the other. Yes,
That's true.
yeah, that's true.
So I think, yeah, coming back to that, to what I was saying, I think it is that
Yeah.
lady also said that she would dream of being Catherine and running on the moors, enjoying that
Oh.
freedom. And she said, when I read the book, is when I
Okay.
realized that what's going on between these two is not exactly romantic love.
Mm, true. So I didn't watch the movie.
Yeah,
I know
but
I
yeah, I
just
mean,
saw that it's available on
yeah,
YouTube, but I've not watched it. So I don't have. I'm not really. I think sometimes watching something can change a lot of things for us. I have not done
but
it.
I,
Gone
I
with the
would
Wind,
agree.
I did first read. Yeah.
But even from the text, yeah, I mean,
So Gone with the Wind,
obviously this whole
yeah,
concept of the of that obsessive love is I'm sure it's bound to be attractive. I think
correct.
let's I mean the only reason that there aren't an equal number of men who are obsessed with Catherine might just be that there aren't that many men who read classics. So uh,
Uh, or that many men who read Wuthering Heights, I think, because uh, I think till now I have probably
so
pushed some 4, 5 family members to read it. Okay, some of them gave it
so
up,
but
and yeah,
no,
one of
please
them
go
who
on.
read it actually hated it. One of them who read it absolutely hated it. So he said, "What rubbish is this?" And so I guess it's not everyone's cup of tea, though we might love it.
It's
So
not, and I think one of the things that used to make me upset about the whole characterization of it as a romance was that characterization would turn off a lot of potential readers who thought that when you say the word romance it is
hmm,
something very different, right? Who don't
correct.
take it seriously enough because of that
Yeah,
word. I think that
correct.
happens. So
True.
uh,
Yeah. So just seeing a few more comments. So Shamal Rao saying, and then his end is tragic. I'm not sure whether slavery and humiliation in the hands of Hindley chiseled him that way. I think it did. Yeah,
I think it's a bit of both, right? He obviously
yeah,
had issues, mental issues to begin with. I don't think he started off without it.
yeah. But then that Percy is something is I think your something is on in your thing. Is there a double screen or something? I'm hearing an
No, no.
echo. It's fine. Okay. Yeah. So and then yeah, Heathcliff is a very strong character in English literature. Yes. Uh, I think it said that after the one after Othello, I think by Shakespeare, Heathcliff has been one person who has been this amazing character who's positive and negative and an antagonist and a protagonist, and people still love it, you know. So yeah. So Tanam says it lured me with the concept of romance, and I was baffled to have been served something as scary, confusing, and giving off negative emotions.
That's okay, Taneem. For you,
Yeah,
going to be the next great thing. So you should be exposed to all these aspects of literature.
right. Yeah. So read somewhere that Patterson's character in Twilight, the skulking, broodiness, etc., is loosely based on Heathcliff's character. Okay, I didn't know about this, Ramya. Just Percy was just telling us this. Um, that's interesting. I couldn't make myself root for Heathcliff, not even after multiple readings. Tulika, always I think we don't root for the same characters. Yeah, so Tulika has been one constant in all our book club discussions, and many of the times we don't agree with the character we root for, I guess. uh, so Deepthi says, I enjoyed Percy's review. Rajnikant's earlier movies as villain will bring Heathcliff to our mind. Okay, so Rajnikant should be very happy about this now. And Tulika says, more than Hindley, it was Catherine's statement that affected Heathcliff. I think so. I don't think he would have cared for what anyone else thought as long as she loved him. Yeah, and he didn't stay to hear the entire statement, right? He left midway, right, Percy? Okay. So I think that's one reason. If he had heard that, yes, she did feel all this, but then she's last, she says that I am Heathcliff and all that. I think he missed out on that. So yeah, so that is true, Tulika, right? And Deepthi says, Archana, I was once part of a reading club where there were a number of young readers, and they frankly said that they didn't enjoy the book. Quite broke my heart. Yeah, Deepthi, I can
Oh
understand
God.
actually. Yeah, but it's see, if Twilight has been inspired by Wuthering Heights, then I think we already have a winner. So obviously, it's going to be reinterpreted and remade to suit various generations that come.
I think a lot of young readers
Mm.
do gravitate
Mm-hmm.
towards Wuthering Heights, sometimes through Twilight,
Mm.
and uh, you know, I would say the Bronte sisters are doing all right at the moment compared to other authors of that era, right?
True, very true. I think so too. Um, even Dickens, for that matter, I think is somewhat lost. Don't you feel, Percy? Now it's not there much at all. Not many people are interested in reading him.
I mean,
But
at one level, it's a
still, I
matter
would
of
say,
popularity going up and down over a period of time. So, maybe it will
yeah,
come back after maybe another 20 years.
yeah. But things like Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights are getting reinterpreted and remade, and um,
Yes.
there's a popular movie also, like Pride and Prejudice was
Yeah. So it,
made. But some of these classics, I think, are still having a lot of hold over the public when compared to
so,
most
so,
others.
so interestingly, Archana, you mentioned Dickens. There was a recent film version of David Copperfield where the
Okay.
role of
Oh.
David Copperfield was played by an Indian, Dev Patel from Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh.
Uh, yeah, it was a very interesting
Okay.
reinterpretation. The director consciously, chose to have a person of color play the very English David Copperfield. I think he was trying to sort of bring
Oh.
out that acting can be race neutral, you know, because
Hmm.
it's not like he had made it an Indian David Copperfield. Okay, it was
Okay.
David
Okay.
Copperfield set in that period with the same supporting characters and all that, but he
Okay.
chose to cast this guy. And
Dave.
unfortunately, I think because of the pandemic, that film did not receive a wide theatrical release.
Oh.
But
Okay.
maybe it will come on streaming. But it was interesting. And of course, there was a version of Emma that came out in, I think, February this year. So
Yeah, I
we
think I
are,
remember
yeah,
seeing it somewhere. Yeah.
we are definitely still making films based on the classics.
So Tulika says women often have a soft spot for bad boys. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. As
You would
long as
know.
they remain only in literature, just for a month, we have a soft spot and then we carry on with our lives.
That's
So
kind of
all women,
exactly that's kind of
yeah.
exactly the plot of The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, by the way. It
Oh,
really
really?
shows. It is
I need to
actually,
read it. Uh,
it's, you could say it's Anne Bronte's response to the fact that a lot of women liked the characters like Heathcliff and Mr. Rochester. It was Anne Bronte writing the anti-romance
hmm.
novel. She is
Okay.
basically saying, what happens when you marry the bad boy? You don't change him. You know, you don't change him. He remains the bad boy, and there you're not going to like it then. You know.
True, true. Good then.
So
So I guess after reading Wuthering Heights, it's recommended to read The Tenant of Wildfell Hall then. So
uh, I think
yeah.
Tenant of Whitefell Hall might be my second longest review. So after Wuthering Heights.
Oh, okay. So please drop the link for us. We like to check it
Sure.
out. Yeah. So yes, he left silently. Okay. I might not have liked Heathcliff, but I absolutely loved the book. Edward was rather drab when compared to Heathcliff. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Darcy and other character in Pride and Prejudice much loved by many. Yeah, but I think yeah, I did like Darcy, but Heathcliff was something else. Okay, so going back to our discussion, we are pretty slow today. Well, okay, so one more thing which is very interesting about the novel is the portrayal of masculinity and femininity. Many male characters have very feminine qualities, and while Catherine is shown as this tough person with masculine qualities, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure if Bronte was really fair, but all her, she shows all these weak characters with feminine qualities like Edgar or Linton are treated with a lot of contempt and scorn. Am I right? And
I think
it's
so. That's the interesting thing, because this is where you have to
mm,
read between the lines of what Nelly says, right? Because Nelly,
yeah.
on the surface, says all the good things about
Hmm.
Edgar, and it
Hmm.
is maybe us as readers who interpret that she's actually talking about that as a feminine and negative connotations.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
think definitely, if you think about Catherine as a protagonist, then yeah, she is probably interpreting it like that, right? So yeah, there's that. I mean, at the same
That's
time,
right.
you have Edgar
Hmm.
being very much a very loving father, right, to the younger Catherine. He is
Yeah, he is.
totally
He
this
is.
very,
Correct.
very indulgent but
Yeah.
very kind, who raises her, who raises her well, and
Yeah.
so there are those positive qualities there. So it's interesting that if
Hmm.
you think that she is portraying those in a as you said, in a negative way, then, or is she kind of pointing out that it is in someone like Linton,
Hmm.
Heathcliff's son, that in
Hmm.
Heathcliff's son, those same qualities that were good in Edgar, in a way,
Hmm.
are
Hmm.
twisted into something very, you know,
Yeah, it's very exaggerated, and
yeah,
he's shown as this complete weakling who's selfish. But actually, the poor fellow actually dies, so he has been really weak,
yeah.
you know. But
And you
I
and I
don't.
think they also show that Heathcliff knows he's going to die, but he wants
Yeah.
him to marry the younger Catherine before he dies, so that
Mm,
Heathcliff can grab the land. So
yeah.
it's not
Right.
just about love. Heathcliff is also a greedy
Yeah.
fellow.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely greedy fellow. Because I think somewhere he's decided, that if at least if he needs to be financially, superior to these people to be considered as someone superior, if
Yeah.
he cannot change his birth or he cannot change the color of the skin or any other way in which they, view him. This is the only thing which was possible for him, I guess.
And I think he becomes obsessed with the idea of, like you said, taking over these two families and their land.
Yeah.
his long-term vengeance.
Yeah. Um, True. And another, I would say, a theme or something which is present all through the book has been imprisonment, you know. So, right from the beginning, Lockwood enters the place, but then the storm is there, and he's literally imprisoned this, into Wuthering
Yeah,
Heights. And
yeah,
then you have a lot of, you see these Victorian women, so like Catherine herself, a person who was running around in the moors and everything. Uh, After getting married, she is at home. She's inside Grange, and she leads a very domestic life. You know, though of
but
course,
don't forget, yeah,
mhm,
and don't forget a sort of a cause of her sickness and her imprisonment is the fact that she's pregnant, right? So
yeah,
the you could also say there is a bit of commentary on how the fact that it is women who are the childbearers ends up becoming or
mhm,
would become a factor at that time. It was a restrictive factor. It was
yeah,
again this
right.
sort of imposition of
Mhm,
something that is celebrated as a gift, but you know it can be a
yeah,
curse. So
true, true.
quite
But I
profound
think
degree.
that could also be because there was a lot of deaths during childbirth at that
Oh,
particular period of
absolutely,
time.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so maybe that's why they wanted to shelter them and keep them
Yeah.
inside the house, or you know. And
No, yeah, I
also,
mean, I'm saying that she's trying to point out how that happens to women. You know.
hmm, right, right, and of course, so also there's this imprisonment of within one's own beliefs and opinions, like with Nellie also, you know. So she
Mm.
has her own idea on what is right and what is wrong, and she's unable to see apart from that, right?
Mm.
Many places. And of course, then comes the imprisonment of Isabella at Wuthering Heights and Kathy at Wuthering Heights, and Kathy being forced to marry Linton. So, and it was very symbolic how the book starts with a storm, but then towards the end, we see this Lockwood just looking at all these three, people lying in their tombs at peace, and the weather is good and all fine. Right? So I think weather
Yeah,
plays a very
weather does play
major
that role.
role. Yeah, weather plays a huge major role all through the book. And yeah, so before we go into the quotes, I think we can just see a little more comments. Yeah, so Shamil Rao says the language in the only book of the author is poetic. Yeah, she is a great storyteller and a very good writer. Yeah, as I said, it's in fact described as the entire book is described as fierce poetry. So it is very poetic. Nellie was a favorite with the old Mr. Earnshaw. She was part of the family. Yes, she was. And
Yes, she was.
yeah, even I think right in the beginning, she says, right, that he promised to get her apples and pears or something, just like how he promised the
Mm,
kids to
mm,
bring something. So he
mm.
promises her too. And so Deepthi says Victoria Holt and Mary Stewart also wrote Gothic novels. Okay. Um, I'm not sure, but I should check it out.
I think Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, which
Yeah,
is also
Mary
considered gothic horror. So.
Shelley read Frankenstein. Yeah, it is. It is. So going on, I just have a few quotes which have, I think, been with me for years and which I always loved. So, yes, this is one which by Isabella, where she says, "I beseech you to explain, if you can, what I have married." And when she talks about Headcliff, so she doesn't even say who is this
Who?
person or what kind of a person I've married, but what I have married. So just like a beast or something, a demon. And again, I think we spoke about this quote. So take it as a gift of God, though it is dark, almost as if it came from the devil, which Mr. Earnshaw says. And then this is the scene which kept Tulika awake at night and gave her nightmares, where he, where Heathcliff puts his head outside the window and he shouts, come in, Kathy, do come, oh, do once more. Oh, my heart's darling, hear me this time, Catherine, at last." And so again, this is, I think, probably the
The
best
most
quote, I think, of
famous
the
quote. Yeah.
whole book. Yeah, the whole book. And
Yeah.
oh, very nice. And in fact, yesterday I was, reading it out to my husband, and he was telling, and he's like, he had a very blank expression about it. Whatever
Mhm.
our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. And okay, so and also this one, it's beautiful. I think I am Headcliff. He's always in my mind, not as a pleasure any more than I am a pleasure to myself, but as my own being. Um, so this is beautiful. In fact, I read something very. I this quote reminded me of something else which I watched. So there's this movie where there are three sisters, and the first sister is married and she has kids, and the second sister is also married and she has kids, and there's this third sister who's a spinster having the time of her life in New York. She goes to parties, has multiple boyfriends, and she's completely different. And
Hmm.
the first sister and her husband face an accident, and the kids become orphans, and
Mhm.
she leaves behind this letter, and this will, which says that the children are to be handed over to the third sister,
Mhm.
which is asking the third sister to adopt them instead of the second sister, who's actually got a family and she's got children and everything. So it would make more sense to actually have her today. So the sister, in fact, the elder sister leaves a letter, behind, saying that I am asking you to take care of my kids, because despite whatever, maybe your current situation, you are exactly the kind of person whom I am. We are similar. So maybe we are not great, maybe we are not good, maybe we are not very disciplined, we are not very good mothers, maybe in getting the children to do their homework or wake up on time or pack their tiffins, but we are same. And I think my children will be more happy with you. You would be a reflection of what I am rather than my other sister. So somehow I think that's very true. When I think Catherine found a mirror image of her in Heathcliff. And if they had married, I think maybe they would have fought and they would have had a lot of troubles, but they would have been happy. At heart, I think they reflect each other and they are
I
similar.
yeah, I don't think those two would have been happy no matter what. I don't think they had the personality to be happy, to be honest, even if they had married. So,
I don't know.
but I think they would have been being happy would have been an unnatural situation for them. So who knows?
Okay, so if all else perished and he remained, I should still continue to be. And if all else remained and he were annihilated, the universe would turn to a mighty stranger. And I think Percy Heathcliff didn't hear these words, right? He left before
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
He ran away
yeah.
before that. If he had heard this, probably he wouldn't. The story would have been totally different, I guess. And people feel with their hearts, and since he has destroyed mine, I have not power to feel for him. So again, these are extremely, I felt, powerful words from Isabella.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I just, when I was researching about this, I have this Paris Review subscription, and I came
Mm-hmm.
across quotes from various writers. There were
Mm-hmm.
actually in-depth articles, and I couldn't share them all, but there were one or two which I wanted to share, which was quotes by other authors on Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
So Catherine Ann Potter says, the American journalist, short story writer, and
Mm-hmm.
novelist. So she says, I think I read that book every year of my life for 15 years and I simply adored it. So she actually chances upon her copy of Wuthering Heights somehow, just like you
Mm-hmm.
and me. And
Mm-hmm.
she reads it for the first time and she completely falls in love with it. And after
Mm-hmm.
that, she says that for the next nearly 15 years, I might have read it at least once every year. You know. And yeah, so then Paul Auster, the postmodern novelist of America, he says, I was always drawn to books that double back on themselves, that brought you into the world of the book, even as the book was taking you into the world. So the manuscript as a hero, so to speak. So Wuthering Heights is that kind of a novel. I think very beautifully explained. And So with that, we come to the end of the discussion. And of course, a major reference for the entire presentation has been Percy's review of Wuthering Heights, which you can find on his blog, percytheslacker.blogspot.com. And as I said, the others are of course the various other whatever I went in research. I've not even been able to connect with everything. I think wherever I could find, I put it in. We have a few more comments, and yeah, it is my first read, and I had difficulty in following Joseph's language. Perhaps my reread will take care of it. I'm not sure
Yeah,
because
it gets
Chandra,
yeah.
despite all my rereads, I have not been able to take care of it. Yeah. So yeah, the marriage would have been stormy. I think so. It would have been stormy, but somehow I don't know. I feel that uh, despite all the storms and all the fights and quarrels, somewhere inside they would have been very happy with each other. So they are made for each other. They would have hit each other, maybe thrown things at each other, but remained happy. And yeah, so but not boring. Yeah, true, never boring. Yeah. So with that, we come to the end of the comments. Thank you so much, Percy, for joining in. Actually,
Yes.
I'm the only person here, and I'm sure everyone is bored of my hearing my voice. And it's
I
been
doubt that.
wonderful having you.
They're
It's
probably
been
wondering
wonderful.
why did Archana have to bring this old geezer in?
No, no, not at all. I'm very sure they're so happy to have you here. And I just hope that please, with the books in future, a few more people please join me here. I would love to have more of you here. And this is, of course, more fun, right, guys? So please do come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you so much for joining on YouTube, and waiting despite all this confusion. And yeah, thank you so much for putting up with all that. And I'll keep you posted on the group about the, next discussion. I think we are reading Dracula next, and
Oh.
I'm really looking forward to it. I have a Writer's Digest annotated version of the book, which I recently picked up here, and I'm looking forward to reading that. So, Percy, do join in if you can next time too. If not with the
Sure.
discussion, then at least in the, along with us during the discussion. And thank you so much, everybody who joined in. I'll keep you posted on what we are going to do with the Facebook group or whether we will be joining in on YouTube. So, whatever best
Sure.
suits us, let's do that.
Thank you,
Thank you, Percy,
Archana.
once again. Yeah, thank you. Signing off, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.